motivating yourself to play Star Citizen. This can be a bit of a challenge. And, it's not something that's entirely on the player's back. I would say it's quite the opposite. It usually comes down to the state of the game. For instance, let's say, we've heard recently that money is permanent. Let's say that you decide to start earning money, building up your cash reserves for the day when features are going to be coming online that you're going to need money for. Do we know 100% ironclad that this money is permanent? No, we don't. We absolutely don't. And many of us suspect that that is not the case, and that there is yet going to be another big reset coming our way. One of the big reasons that a lot of us play MMOs is the idea of progression, of earning things, unique things in those games that kind of show our characters' accomplishments or their travels across the world or universe or whatever. When those accomplishments or when those earnings can be just kind of swept out from under us at any time because the game is, in a pre-alpha state, and that is the very likely outcome, it's very difficult to work up the motivation to, keep playing the game. I mean, if you could imagine, let's say that I wanted to play World of Tanks. The amount of hours that I would have to play to earn my way up to something like this tank here, the mouse, is very considerable. It's quite a hefty grind. But the truth is that, if I was playing this game and I found out that at any moment this could, or with any upcoming patch, this tier 10 and every other tier 10 tank that I have could simply be erased from me. Could simply be taken away as everything goes in for yet another rebalance. My motivation to do that work is kind of pulled out from under me, and that's kind of one of the big problems that Star Citizen faces, and that's kind of one of the difficult choices that a lot of players have. Is a lot of players do want to interface with the game. A lot of players want to get into the game, but the problem is they don't know that anything that they do is really going to have consequences in the future. I would actually look at the current state of Star Citizen now and what we're doing as almost like a bit of a dry run. CIG is kind of testing out the waters and saying, what happens if we try to maintain some level of persistence in terms of player progression? What happens if we flip that switch? Is it too early? Is it too soon? And I think that what we're getting right now is kind of like a dry run. Now, another point that kind of pushes players away from Star Citizen is the bugs, of which there are quite a few bugs, right? A lot of these we've kind of gotten used to, and they've kind of become these things that we kind of smirk at and we kind of laugh at, like, NPCs standing on chairs. That's been going on for over a year. It's just all these things that we kind of look at and we just kind of roll our eyes, but we just keep playing because we know eventually it's going to get fixed. But there are other bugs that unfortunately can be quite catastrophic that require a player to reset their account, which resets some things, doesn't reset others. And there's a Moby Glass bug where you actually have to sex change your character to fix it. It's there's a lot of little annoyances that can really kind of creep up on you and really kind of spoil your gameplay. And there are other games that have shown up in similarly buggy states. Cyberpunk 2077's release was marred by an incredible amount of bugs. And oddly enough, my furthest ahead save game in the story, I still haven't completed the game yet, but my furthest ahead completion of the game, I have a certain character from the Matrix series repeating the same line to me over and over and over and over and over again. And it's just infuriating. Like he just, like, I keep getting the subtext and he just keeps repeating the same line, and I'm just like, why is this happening on a release product, you know? That can be kind of irritating, but there's a lot going in Star Citizen or in Cyberpunk that is actually kind of cool, and you can kind of see how the game could be a lot more interesting. There's been some rumors of an MMO version of this, and I don't know. I feel it, you know, this is something that could easily go the GTA 5, GTA Online route, and I'd be very interested to see how they develop that. But, you know, as a Star Citizen player, when I was reading about all the other problems that other players were having, and I was comparing that to my own gameplay, one of the things that I thought was like, you know, maybe it's just because I come from the Star Citizen universe, but it's really not that bad. You know, it could be worse. It really could be. Now, you may remember a while ago, there was this really great feature in Star Citizen, right? Jumptown. When Jumptown was popping, when the money was flowing out of Jumptown, it was kind of a little bit of a golden era in Star Citizen. It was great. It was fun. People were fighting each other. Everyone was kind of hanging around the same area. The universe felt full and populated. And for a while, we had a very, very lucrative, you know, cash earning, you know, area or potential. But at the same time, there was a lot of danger involved in it as well. But eventually CIG kind of pulled the plug on that. And so, you know, you might think, oh, no, you've got it. You've got the secret sauce right there. Keep that open. Bring that back. And a lot of us do want them to bring it back in some form. But the truth of it is that the game is simply not ready for it. And I'm not talking about can the servers support it, you know, too many players, too much combat, the servers are dying. But the structure of the game itself just can't support Jumptown. I mean, there is a legitimacy to the argument that CIG makes, is that, you know, the market for drugs in Grim Hex can only support so much influx of, you know, Slam and Neon and Widow and things like that. There is a legitimate, realistic argument for that. If there were, let's say, an unlisted landing area, let's say CIG opened up Area 11, and Area 11 on ArcCorp was more of a criminal landing area, you could see with the entire population of ArcCorp that the money would legitimately flow. You know, you could say, oh, okay, there would be enough of an appetite there that players could be just shipping, you know, Widow and Neon and all that stuff over there hand over fist, and it would just get gobbled up, and they would probably make a hell of a lot of money along the way. But that runs into another kind of structural problem with Star Citizen, is where do players spend the money? Well, you can buy all the ships that are available in game, but realistically, if you remember Jumptown's true golden era, you'll know that if you were to just expand on that for a few months or even a year, players would be billionaires very, very quickly. It would be very much like watching, you know, Narcos, if you ever watch that on Netflix. It goes from a very sedate and simple affair and a few little cars, you know, running some small packages of drugs across the border to make, you know, 100,000 or 200,000 or $1 million, to all of a sudden becoming $1 billion industry. And that's what would happen with players, is that drug running from Jumptown would become $1 billion industry overnight, and we would very quickly run into a place where player cash reserves would just be astronomical. And what do you do in the future with the game when you want to introduce certain landing sites? At some point, you're going to have to cool that off. And then what are you going to say to the players who didn't get to participate in that, you know? It's a very difficult thing to deal with. Now, some players would say, "Oh, I don't care. I don't care. I just want to go to Jumptown with a Caterpillar. I want to load up, and I want to be making, you know, 3, 4 million, 6 million, 10 million a haul into ArtCorp. That's what I want. But the game and the economy just really aren't ready for that. There's no sure way to get your money reset in Star Citizen, or to make sure that everybody gets their money reset, is to basically just build up to astronomical levels of money, which is kind of one of the reasons why even I'm very sedate in my money making in Star Citizen. A lot of my money does get shifted over to my alt account, and I think if I were to like math it out, if I were to log on to both characters right now, I would probably be sitting at 2.2 million UEC, which in my mind is a healthy figure waiting for the economy to expand. It's difficult to judge, especially when you have no guidelines from CIG. It's very difficult to judge where the cutoff is going to be. CIG might cut us all off at, 500,000 and say anything above 500,000, we're clawing it all back. Or it could be 10 million, or it could be 50 million. We don't know, right? But once I kind of breached that 2 million mark, I was like, I feel that I'm still within reason, I could, truth be told, I have a Caterpillar, and obviously I have access to YouTube. I see all these videos that people make about the trade routes, and they're, this is X amount of UEC per hour, and this is good earnings, and that is good earnings. And especially now that they've removed like some of the restrictions on the larger landing sites like Lorville and ArtCorp, some people might say, hey, now's the time to get out there and grind out, billions. I don't know that that's safe, in my opinion. And I'm certainly somebody who has the means to exploit that, and certainly, start really making money hand over fist, moving Laranite and Astatine and whatever else. But I don't, because I'm not too sure that CIG isn't going to internally kind of come up and say, hey, you know what? Beyond this amount, it's gone. We got to keep things reasonable. And I feel that sitting in around the 2.2 million is, that's not over the top. Each player is going to view it a different way, but I would say that that's kind of a healthy number. And that's one of the reasons why, oftentimes, like when I make these videos, I still use background footage of me just chipping away, just sprinkling a little money on the stack, just adding a little bit. I'm not going crazy. I'm not trying to, max out my earnings per hour. I'm not building, millions upon millions upon millions just to see it taken away from me. I'm building up to a figure that I would make anyways, incidentally, just in making, background footage for these videos. But at the same time, it's not an amount of money that if I lost it, I would lose my mind at the same time. It's not something that would make me go like, oh God, CIG, why did you do this? Rage, I'm not setting myself up for disappointment that way. I'm just experimenting with the economy, testing things out, like, oh, maybe they loosened up the restrictions on drugs. No, they didn't. But, just testing things out and just having a little bit of fun. But apart from that, I do think that earning a certain amount of money in game is not an unreasonable thing to do, and maybe a bit looking forward and a bit being smart about things. But going over the top, I think, is setting yourself up for disappointment. I think that sooner or later, CIG is going to kind of claw this back and say, okay, we have a fair idea of how the economy works now, and here's where we want things to be. So that, if you're playing Star Citizen right now, that is the approach. That is the mentality that I use for interfacing with the economy and earning money right now. Some people may view it differently, but I'm just kind of playing it on the safe side for the sake of my own sanity.
thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in the Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.